citizenship.
Now, he claims they are under racial.
First of all, Trump doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about with regard to the whole South African racial situation. What is an Afrikaner? They're generally colloquially referred to as Boer, which means farmer. So the Dutch established a colony at the Cape of Great Hope. Well, the Dutch East India Company established a colony at the Cape of Good Hope, which ended up becoming Cape Town in 1652. So these people have been here, been in South Africa for damn near 400 years. And yes, Boers are extremely racist. They are extremely reactionary. They are also extremely Protestant. But that's neither here nor there. These people do not want to leave South Africa. See, the thing is, the Boers, the Afrikaners that left South Africa, they left like immediately after they lost full control of the country. And the thing is, where it matters, white South Africans still have full control of the country. Like, black people really do not own shit over there. Yes, they dominate politics, but in terms of like the mineral wealth, the land, white South Africans still own a vast majority of that shit. They still are like the people who are the rich in South Africa. So why the fuck would these people who've been there for 400 years want to just like be like, you know what? Yeah, let's go to America. Well, we'll have to work at McDonald's. Actually, you know what? They won't have to work at McDonald's because they're like Trump's pets. Trump gets literally all of his opinions on these matters, on anything pertaining to Africa, from Elon Musk. So he's listened to Elon Musk complain and rant and rave about how his people have been treated like shit in South Africa. And now Trump, because he's a fucking moron, has decided, yeah, you know what? Let's bring them to the United States. Let's make them refugees and bring them to the United States. Refugees are fleeing something, okay? The white South Africans still have it pretty good over there. So why the fuck would they be refugees? They're not fleeing. Nobody's declared war on them. Shit, if you know anything about South African military history, generally the Boers have declared war on everybody else. So who are these people? Let's see.
Persecution, but the South African government argues otherwise. Our Matthew Torres joins us live at Dulles International Airport, where they arrived roughly 4 hours ago. Matthew, critics say this is unfair to other refugees.
So he's bringing in a bunch of useless fucking South African refugees. Not even refugees. I don't know why I used that word. Reckies. That's the word that I intended to use. Basically, wannabe mercenaries and drunks. And when you get into a debate or an argument, because you can't debate with these people, you smash them. But when you get into an argument with a reactionary about the condition of white South Africans, to the extent that it can be described as a condition or a situation, when you talk to these people, they're always like, oh, the plaasmoorde, the farm murders. Okay, white South Africans are the least likely group to be murdered in South Africa. The least likely group. So they're always talking about how the Rhodesians and the white Kenyans and the white Namibians and Angolans and the white South Africans, how they feed everybody. Africans have been feeding themselves for millennia. We don't need white people to feed them. They don't. You really are so racist. Your brain, your mind is so rotted out with racist bullshit that you actually believe that Africans had no agriculture. You thought that the Zulu and the Xhosa couldn't feed themselves? Like, the Zulu are some of the most like cow-obsessed people in the human species. But you actually think that they needed a bunch of fail sons who could not make it in the Netherlands to come down there and teach them how to like, when have Europeans ever done anything out of the goodness of their heart? The Boers, okay, so there's two types of white people in South Africa. You've got the Boers, who've been there the longest. They're basically the descendants of Dutch, German, and French Huguenot, aka Protestant, settlers who came to the Cape of Good Hope starting in 1652. Their language is Afrikaans, which is basically categorized by the OG Dutch as Kitchen Dutch, because it is derived from the archaic form of Dutch that the original Cape of Good Hope settlers spoke to their servants. Speaking of the Cape of Good Hope settlers, there's also like an entire ethnic group in South Africa. They're called the Kurdish. And they are descended from liaisons between the Cape settlers and the indigenous people of South Africa, who are, they're referred to pejoratively as Bushmen, but they refer to themselves in their many languages as the San people. So those are the indigenous inhabitants of the South Africa region, hunter-gatherers. But the Kurdish also speak Afrikaans. So we've already talked about that. So you also have the English, who fought wars with the Dutch, well, the Boers, 2 of them, if I recall correctly, in the late 19th century. Winston Churchill was actually down there, and he found the Boers to be too racist even for him. If you're too racist for Winston fucking Churchill, there's something wrong with you. So, yeah, the Boers are basically a bunch of Dutch and French and German failsons.
Well, Leslie, that's because months prior, the White House already suspended programs that would have allowed
And no, Trump doesn't give a shit about these people. Trump did not even know these people existed. Trump does not know anything besides what he's told. So, yeah, he did not even know these people existed until he started talking to and hanging out with Elon Musk.
Refugees from other countries across the world.
And the funny thing is, Elon Musk isn't even a Boer. Okay? Like, he looks at the Boers as dirt. His first language is English. He's descended from the people that put the Boers in concentration camps. And yeah, the Brits did put the Boers in concentration camps.
To resettle here in the U.S., the Deputy Secretary of State.
It's kind of hard to decolonize South Africa with only 50 people leaving, but hey.
Claims that this happened.
I guess this rotting shithole can take an L for South Africa. Bring them here so that it's easier to destroy them.
Because they were unsure of the influx of people.
Rare Brit dub indeed.
Coming in were properly vetted in the sake of national.
Properly vetted? Like, how do you... So, you're randomly arresting and deporting people who are permanent residents, who are married to United States citizens, who have legal protections. This is why, like, I hate the legalist obsession of the right in the left wing in this country. Like, you all cannot rely on the law to protect you. You cannot. These people have been running roughshod over every somewhat progressive law that this country has ever made, and you're still relying on that. A person with common sense, a person with the ability to realize where things are going, we'd be like, you know what, it's time to do something else. Or at least it's time to prepare to do something else. It's like these people want to get massacred. There has been no vetting of these people. They brought these people in solely because of their loyalty to Trump. There are still millions of descendants of Boers in South Africa. Most of them do not want to leave. Yes, they are extremely racist still. These are not progressive people. These are very, very conservative, reactionary people. But you know what happened? After the fall of apartheid, like, most of these people are like, you know what? We've been here for 400 years. The blacks are going to take over eventually. They do not call black people blacks, by the way. They use a word that in Arabic means unbeliever. But yeah, they're going to take over eventually. But we've got our land, and we've been here for 400 years. We're not going anywhere. Like, most of them came to grips with it. That's what most people do. I imagine that's what the majority of white Americans will do when this shit finally collapses. That they're going to be like, you know what? I can't go back to fucking Italy. I can't go back to fucking Germany. I can't go back to fucking Ireland, so fuck it. The Indians were going to take their land back eventually. The blacks were going to get their reparations eventually. So you know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's just fix it so that we don't get killed, okay? Let's just be, like, try to be somewhat of an asset to society.
National security, but why prioritize Afrikaners? That's a big question tonight.
Because Trump is racist. Why are you always asking these stupid ass questions? Because he is a racist. because he's a racist. He's actually kicking out productive immigrants. Do you have any idea how high our food prices would be if it were not for the Salvadoreños, the Hondureños, the fucking Mexicanos? Shit, these people are so ignorant that most of them do not even know that Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. Like, they literally think that Puerto Ricans are subject to deportation. So you're deporting people from America to America. We literally fought a war over this place and colonized it, took it over from the Spaniards. But you think that just because they're brown and they speak Spanish that they are foreigners. No, they're just as American as you are. They fought and bled and died for this country. And now, apparently, Paul Kagame's Uncle Tom ass in Africa, he's in the process of opening up Rwanda as El Salvador East. We've got some shit coming. If you're not prepared, then there's really nothing I can say that can prepare you.
WUSA 9 captured the private charter carrying 49 white South Africans arriving at Dulles International Airport around noon.
He brought these people over here on a private plane. A private plane. Imagine if we were going down fetching Venezuelans or Salvadoreños or Brazil. I don't know what the Portuguese term for Brazilians is. Brasileiro? I know that when you speak Portuguese, you have to swallow every fucking thing. Like, you have to talk like you got a mouthful of hot grease. Brazil. So imagine if we were going down to Brazil and bringing Brazilians up here on chartered flights. Who paid for this?
I want you all to know.
Brasileiro. I love the internet. Like, there's always at least one Brazilian in chat. There's always at least one Brasileiro. Brasileiro. Brazilian. There's at least one Brazilian in chat to explain their lovely country.
That you are really welcome here.
You're the first group granted.
No, you're not. Go back. You can't get biltong here, and farm work actually means that you have to do manual labor, not shoot at animals and get drunk all day.
Refugee status by the White House after.
Oh, you are Mexican. Tú eres mexicano. ¿Pero hablas portugués?
President Donald Trump signed an executive order in February alleging they face racial persecution.
I read somewhere that Portuguese came before Spanish. Like, Spanish is like Castellano is a descendant of Portuguese. But yeah, like, I have a smattering of Spanish. I took like 5 years of it in school all the way up to university level. And like, I under no circumstances can call myself fluent. Like, I really don't think, like, you can speak a language very, very well, but it's very, very difficult for an American to be like truly fluent in a language. Like, my accent always comes out. Like, people can always tell like that I'm an American. Cuando hablo español, porque mi acento. That was probably horrible and butchered, but I can make it far enough to make myself understood.
Persecution.
And they tell quite.
But yes, Romance languages are very, very easy to be mutually intelligible because. Is he up on a tan suit? That's a nice break from the monotony. Like, one thing about American politicians that I hate, or American business people that I hate, is that the default suit colors are always navy blue, black, and charcoal gray. Like, tan. Like, there was a literal fucking sartorial scandal when Obama wore a tan suit.
Harrowing stories of.
Yes, French is a Romance language. They're all derived from Latin. They're all basically dialects of Latin with various influences from other languages. For example, Spanish, because Spain was under the dominance of Al-Andalus, of the Moors from North Africa for centuries. And they were civilized by the Moors, because before they were basically Visigoth bandits. But the Moors civilized them, and a lot of basically any Spanish word that starts with al is a descendant from Arabic. Alfombra, rug.
The violence that they faced.
Prior.
Yeah. Well, they detained Hassan Piker at the Chicago airport yesterday. They didn't seize any of his devices, which is fascinating. Like, I believe when the comrade from Atlanta, half Atlanta was detained. Like, they took his laptop, they took his phone, but yeah, he was in CBP custody for a few hours yesterday at Chicago airport. He was talking about it on his Twitter.
to their arrival.
And yes, I agree. The Muslims should have kept Spain. They should not. The Muslims should not have expanded to Germany. Can you imagine German Muslims? Like literal fucking Deutsch-speaking Muslims. Like, German is already an angry sounding language. Can you imagine like a nasheed in Deutsch? No. That would have been too much. They would have basically crashed out all over Europe, and we would live under the fucking Deutsche Caliphate right now. Northern Europeans have no business with Islam.
Trump repeated claims.
Look, the Northern European languages have no business with Islam because they're already angry-sounding, guttural fucking languages. Arabic, it's a beautiful fucking language. It was made for preaching. It was made for teaching. Northern European languages, Norwegian, English, Dutch, German, Swedish, all these guttural-ass languages,
With no
Yes, there are German Muslims already.
direct evidence that
A lot of Turks and a lot of Kurds.
there is a genocide of white.
Make Afrikaans great again. Bro. See, these people were literally imported to this country because of their loyalty to Trump. That's why they were brought here. And why do they dress like this? Bro, you're on fucking TV. You got your big-ass fucking beer gut hanging over your stomach. Bro, you're on TV. Look at this dude. Let me move myself so y'all can see this man, so you can see this coming asset to American society in full. Bro, we have enough people that look like this in Alabama. Why would you bring more? Then you've got this kid that you're brainwashing. MAGA, make Afrikaans great again. If you were so concerned about Afrikaans, you would not have deported yourself. You would not have self-deported yourself to a country run by a grifter and failed TV show host and another grifter who fled your country. If you cared about Afrikaans, Afrikaans literally means Africans. Why would you leave Africa to come here? Because you were a fuck up there. If you fuck up in a country that literally made y'all the fucking kings for decades, if y'all fuck up in a country that was set up for y'all, in which y'all still have the overwhelming majority of economic power, if you fucked up there, then you just can't make it. Cosplaying as Texans, like Afrikaners do not wear cowboy hats.
White South Africans.
White farmers are being brutally killed and their land is being...
No, they're not. He's getting all of this shit from Elon Musk. If you actually like follow Afrikaans accounts on Instagram, like non-political Afrikaans accounts, these people are going, like the young Boers, like they're going to fucking hip-hop concerts. They're fucking living their lives. They don't care. They're like, bro. Shit, even a lot of the old Boers, they've made peace with it. Like, a handful of Rhodesians have actually went back to Zimbabwe. They're like, you know what? Fuck it. I like the fucking place. I like the animals. I like the fucking... I like going out in the bush. Like, it's my fucking home. Like, white people like that have made their peace, and you're like, you know what? I like this fucking place. Yes, the blacks run it. I don't really care. I was born here. I live here. Fuck it. Who cares? Like, those are normal-ass fucking people. It's this victim mindset. You are not a victim. You are not a fucking victim. Yeah, let's just resettle all the Boers in Columbia, Missouri. These people are gonna run when they can't get the type of jerky that they like, and they actually have to do work. The thing about settlers is that settlers generally do not work. They don't. They have other people work for them. These people do not leave Germany and France and the Netherlands to work. These people had literal slaves. So that whole, oh, they feed everybody, that's a myth. They don't feed anybody. They feed themselves. But the indigenous people of South Africa have been feeding themselves for millennia. Like the San people, these are the oldest, like literal, oldest fucking people on earth. Yeah. But yes, they would have starved to death without the tender mercies of Jappie van Schnukkelberger or whatever.
being confiscated.
Trump says they're under a government-sponsored race-based discrimination.
Did Trump get a nose job? I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the man has everything about him is fake. His hair is fake. His skin color is fake. His teeth are fake. He has a mouth full of veneers. I wouldn't be surprised. And yet, he still looks ugly as fuck. Like, no matter how much plastic surgery this man has done, he still looks like a fucking troll. He's an artificial human being. No person, I have never seen a person that looks like Trump. Afrikaners are of Dutch, French, and German descent. There are British descended people in South Africa, but they are not Boers. A Boer refers to a very specific ethnic group and a very specific, like, they came over within a very specific historical context. There are plenty of British people in South Africa, though. The British had South Africa for centuries or decades. I can't remember. The British had South Africa for a long time. English is actually one of the official languages of South Africa, and English is also Elon Musk's first language. Elon Musk, well, the thing is, like, in the schools during apartheid, which is basically when the Boers controlled South Africa, it was a period roughly spanning, I think, 1947 all the way up until, ironically, the white South Africans themselves voted to get rid of apartheid. So, basically, 40, 50 years, and they made everybody learn Afrikaans. There were actually riots in black townships, basically shanty towns, Bantustans, in which black people were forced to live because they tried to force the black people to speak Afrikaans. And like, no, this is the colonizer language. You don't want to speak this shit. Plus, it sounds fucking horrible. But they made everybody learn Afrikaans. So Elon Musk definitely learned Afrikaans in school, but he probably has forgotten most of it. Like, it's not, he doesn't speak it every day. Like, it's not a language. What he's going to do, go hang out with these 50 motherfuckers that they dragged over here? Like, Elon Musk has no, I don't even think his family speaks Afrikaans in a day-to-day setting. He did not grow up speaking it. He grew up speaking English.
After a new law he believes unfairly allows land seizures based on race. The South African government denies all of his allegations. The new law in question gives the South African government permission to take land without compensation in certain cases as they address disparities caused by
basically eminent domain. Like, there's an entire black town just outside of St. Louis City proper. It's where Lambert is, if you've ever flown into St. Louis. Just north of Lambert Airport, there was this all-black town called Kinloch. And the government basically bought or took the land from these people, claiming that they were going to expand the airport, but they never expanded it. So Kinloch is basically warehouses and ruined buildings. It's really sad. But the U.S. government can take your fucking land. Shit, the U.S. government is literally founded on land that was taken. So this is just hypocrisy and racism.
By the apartheid era. Also known as Afrikaners, the descendants of European settlers benefit economically. While they only make up 7% of the population, they acquire most of the farmland.
It's a big middle finger, honestly, to any immigrants or refugees.
But to fast-track what's normally a lengthy process to resettle migrants is sparking outrage. Allowing Afrikaners to move to the U.S. and apply for citizenship comes as the...
And yes, these people are extremely inbred. They also ironically have a little bit of either black, Bantu, or San Khoisan ancestry.
White House suspended refugee resettlement programs in January.
All of these folks who have just come in today have been carefully vetted pursuant to our...
Also, if you're wondering where I've been all weekend, one of my comrades got me addicted to Arma Reforger, and I literally have not been able to stop playing it all weekend. I apologize.
Refugee standard.
I justify my addiction to this game by claiming that it's training for protracted people's war.
Whether or not the broader refugee programs for other people around the world will be...
Yeah, Mark, Maria Vroja, 17, is the one that got me addicted to fucking Arma Reforger. And he came here to brag about it.
Lifted is still an ongoing consideration.
We've seen people that have been kidnapped, tortured, lives under threat, family members murdered and stuff like that. That's the people that come in as refugees. In
Hayward, California, there was a black Mexican town called Russell City that's now a warehouse district in Hayward. Yeah, they love destroying historic colonized cities and towns and villages to build warehouses, to build fucking highways, or just to revert to prairie. They do that a lot. It's almost like a shitload of blacks and Mexicans living together is a danger to their power structure. Shit, that's the main reason why they killed Fred Hampton. Like, people on the left think that Fred Hampton was killed because he worked with white people. No. No. The Young Patriots were dope. There's a really, really good book about them called Hillbilly Nationalists, I believe. You should read it. They were dope. They were a genuinely revolutionary organization. But the thing is, if you don't think about Chicago, the white working class of Chicago is not mostly Appalachian migrants or Southern migrants. That was what the Young Patriots were. The white working class of Chicago is Polish, Irish, and Italian. Those are the big three. You also have a lot of Slavs. You've got, well, Poles are Slavs. You've got like a lot of Russians, Czechs, even Macedonians, I believe, but like a lot of people like that. Oh yeah, and Greeks. But Chicago is also a city of gangs. Everybody got a gang. I bet if you do research, you'll even find a Macedonian gang. But the Irish, Polish, and Italian gangs, the groups that represented the three main ethnic groups of white working class Chicago, they were also extremely racist. And they were also extremely tied to the police, especially the Irish. So they were not going to be hanging out with Black Panthers and Young Patriots and Young Lords. They murdered Fred Hampton in major part because they were afraid of him uniting these very, very well-armed gangs. They were afraid of him linking up with Jeff Fort and other leaders of these organizations. They were not afraid of the Young Patriots, dope as they were. They were afraid of the Blackstone Rangers and other groups like that. They were afraid of the Young Lords because these groups actually represented military power. And the U.S. government is not stupid. They realized that when you merge military power, aka gangs, with political power represented by the Black Panther Party, then you're going to have organized riots. You're not just going to have little flare-ups that last for like 2 days. No. You're going to have long-lasting urban insurrections. That is what they were afraid of. That is what they're afraid of. That is why they killed Fred Hampton. They did not want the huge Black community in Chicago uniting with the huge Puerto Rican community in Chicago, represented by the Young Lords organization. That is what they were afraid of. That alliance, along with the fact that they literally considered Fred Hampton to be like literally the next Martin Luther King, the next Black Messiah. Note that they did not say multiracial working class Messiah. They said Black Messiah. Because they know that Black people are inherently a danger to this country.
The real refugees, not this. Even if they were, then get them, then go through the same process as other refugees and let the other refugees in.
When have white people ever went through the same shit that they put on everybody else?
And in a stunning move, the Episcopal Church announced today that they will not be helping the Afrikaners who just got here through its refugee resettlement ministry.
You know, the Episcopalians are funny. Like, they are literally the Church of England in the United States. Like, this is the old money WASP church. This is George Bush's church. This is Leverett Saltonstall's church. This is like the old money white Anglo-Saxon Protestant church. Yet they are also extremely progressive.
Citing a commitment to racial justice and reconciliation. It also
yes, Hoover did say that Fred Hampton was a bigger threat than the Russians and Chinese.
announced it will end a partnership with the federal government, which would have allowed them to receive federal grants. Guys?
A lot of folks also wondering what role his ally, Elon Musk, may have played in this as well. Matt.
Literally all of it.
South Africans arrived at Dulles International Airport today.
Bro, what are they wearing?
And it is the first wave of Afrikaners resettled here in the United States under a controversial refugee program that was launched by the Trump administration. Fox 5's Tom Fitzgerald joining us live from Dulles International. Fitz, who are these folks and why are they here again?
Yeah, a lot of questions from folks as this was
Thank you.
announced today. You might remember it was back on February 7th that President Trump signed one of his executive orders, but that one had to do with racial discrimination, he says, in the country of South Africa. This is aimed at South Africa's black-led government, and the Trump administration claims...
What? Like, who is supposed to lead the South African government? Okay, South Africa is not just a black country. That is true. But like, who the fuck is supposed to lead it? The majority of the people there are black. The majority of the people there have been fucked over. Like, it kills me. Like, do you complain about the German government being led by Germans? Do you complain about the British monarchy being Brits? Well, they're not even Brits, they're Germans. You complain about the French president being named Emmanuel Macron? Like, do you claim, like, bro, why is it that when black people get our own shit, everybody cries? Like, even white leftists do this. Why do you want New Africa? Why do you want New Africa? Like, why? Or New Africa is unfeasible. Yeah, so is a fucking multiracial working class revolution in the United States. Shit, if you know anything about American history, you will not be condemned for thinking that that's a pipe dream too. Like, America is generally seen as the most reactionary country in world history, the most bourgeois country in world history. But you want to make a communist America? Shit, a reasonable person might call that a tall order at best, but you really think that black Americans getting our own shit is a pipe dream? Why? Because you think there'll be no place for you? Like, you think they're just going to put you all on leaky boats back to Europe? Why would we do that? That only happens if you fight the revolution and try to wreck. That's what happens. Because we're not going to tolerate that shit. But like, no, we're not going to just be massacring and deporting people because they're white. For one, that's genocidal. And for two, we have better fish. We have bigger fish to fry. Like, first of all, most of you all will probably flee anyways, leaving you all as a minority in this country, which you all are already on the path to being in the first place, because y'all are too busy whining to fucking have kids. The capitalist system that you all continue to prop up has made it basically impossible for you all to have any more than 1 or 2 kids. So y'all fucked yourselves that way. But like, it's just that you all cannot like read anybody's motivations outside of your own fucked up way of doing things. We ain't like y'all.
At South Africa's black-led government, and the Trump administration claims that white South Africans, who are known as Afrikaners, have been the subject of this. So today, this airlift from South Africa to Dulles International Airport was the first group of what we have been told is Afrikaner refugees arriving here at Dulles today. Now, administration officials say that these Afrikaners are the victims of race-based persecution, and federal officials today from the State Department and Homeland Security pledged at the airport as they arrived after a 12-hour flight. The U.S. government would help them with housing, furniture, food, everything they needed to relocate here to the United States.
The president made it clear that Afrikaners in South Africa who are the victims of unjust racial discrimination would be welcome to come to the United States, and he's now delivering on that promise.
And Fitz, there is some controversy over this refugee flight today. So what are critics of the flight saying at this point?
Well, you know, while the president signed this executive order for the Afrikaners on February 7th, you might remember before that, the very first day of this administration.
Yeah, waiting until you didn't leave in 95 after Mandela was elected. You didn't leave in 2000. You're leaving now. Like, you've lived in this place for 30 fucking years. Not a mumbling word. But now, shit, y'all didn't even come over here during Trump 1. Y'all are waiting until now to come over here. Like, if y'all shit was so fucked up, if y'all was so jacked up over there, y'all would have been came. Like, that's what refugees do. Why are there so many Salvadoreños in los Estados Unidos? Porque, Jesus Christ, I just lapsed into Spanish. Because the United States has destroyed their country. They've got a fucking crypto dictator down there that just throws people in prison for having tattoos. That's why they're fleeing. NAFTA gutted a substantial chunk of the Mexican corn farmers' livelihood. We're dumping cheap, mass-produced American corn on them ruining the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of subsistence farmers. That's why they're coming up here to build your fucking house. Because the United States has never, ever improved anybody's life. It has never, ever improved anybody's country. If they're working class or if they are a peasant. The United States does not go to these places to improve people's lives. It goes there to implement governments or force the implementation of policies that makes it easy for it to steal. They go there for cheap labor. That's why they're never, ever, ever going to reshore industry to this country, because if you imagine a pair of wheat Tims. If they made those in the United States, workwear guy taught me this. If they made those in the United States, them shits would be $900. That would not be everyday wear in New York unless you were a fucking dope dealer or unless you were Eric Adams. You'd be wearing fucking Filas. So the United States needs cheap labor to provide cheap goods to its citizenry. That's how imperialism works. I remember that. In Kabul, there were hundreds of people died because they were trying to cling onto the wings of these planes. They were trying to crawl up in the fucking engine compartment. They were literally being eviscerated. They were being blown to bits because they were so desperate to leave the best that America had made of their country.
Administration, the president.
But they were fucking with them. No, they can't come here. But yeah, bring all these Bass Pro Shop wearing motherfuckers over here.
Effectively shut down.
They should be excluded from the country just because of their fashion sense.
The U.S. refugee program. So a lot of these refugee advocates from around the world are saying, look, if you're going to make an exception for these Afrikaners, why aren't you letting refugees in from around at other hot spots throughout the world? And, incidentally, Angie, it's not uncommon for a foreign government to deny that people who are leaving their country are refugees. However, the South African president vehemently denied that these people are refugees. In fact, he says
because they aren't. Because they aren't. They're scum, just like their ancestors that cannot make it in South Africa. So they're coming here. And they're probably going to be scum. No, you know what? Trump is going to basically deputize these people. I'm calling it now. He's going to try to fill out the ranks of ICE. These people are politically loyal to him. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get any more of these reckies and drunks to come over here. Recce is short for Reconnaissance Battalion because the Boers, I'll give the Boers credit where they're due. They're very good mercenaries. They're very good at killing people. They're very good at killing animals. But that's pretty much all they're good for. So my guess is that Trump is bringing these people over here for that. He's going to try to make them cops. He's going to try to make them into ICE agents or CBP agents. They're stupid as fuck. And they're entirely loyal to him. He's basically trying to import his own little personal Swiss guard. I guarantee you, in 5-6 months, you're going to start seeing some of these people that showed up at Dulles today. They're going to be hanging out with Elon Musk with guns. Elon Musk is extremely paranoid. So he's probably importing his own little bodyguard force. And he's doing it all on our tax dollars.
All right. So
one meme and armor reforger apparently. Why is your pistol on the ground, bro? Anyways, one meme about armor reforgers that the helicopters. Nobody knows how to fly helicopters. I run into a dope pilot every I think I've logged already 30 hours in this game since picking it up last week, but I just have not been able to master the helicopter. I'm not a Tuskegee Airman yet. Well, let's see if I can learn from this video.
So, welcome in. I'm going to show...
and yes, Elon Musk does use his kid as a human shield, it is known.
If you guys have been struggling to fly an armory forger, I'm going to try and teach you guys a few little things that I think will help you learn. And today we are going to practice, and I advise you to practice in the MI8. All right, you'll see a lot of people doing some crazy things in the Huey, and lots of people will recommend jumping into the Game Master or the in-game training and trying out the trying out the Huey. But I actually recommend trying the MI8 because it flies much heavier. It flies it's much more difficult to maneuver.
Am I going to get a helicopter? I don't know. Like, y'all, the funny thing about streaming, especially political, is that people immediately assume that you are rich for some reason. People immediately assume that you're rich. Yes, this rig was pretty expensive, but like, bruh, nobody's going to sponsor my black ass to sit up here and talk about Maoism and play video games. Nobody's going to do that. Why? Because they don't want people learning about Maoism. Nobody's going to pay my black ass to sit up here and talk about Maoism all day. Nobody's going to pay my black ass to sit up here and talk about video games and play video games all day. All right. Plus, I already have a fucking reputation. I am not rich. But yeah. Oh, where we're stealing it? I don't know. First of all, I think you would have to learn how to fly the fucking thing. Look up helicopter lessons.
So if you get the basics down in the MI8,
I'm not getting to no helicopter with nobody that don't know how to fly. My name is not Kobe Bryant without the money.
every other, like the Huey and the modded helicopters and stuff like that, are going to feel easy in comparison. So I recommend.
Anybody got a fighter jet plug? I mean, if you go off the coast of Yemen, I heard there's several you could choose from.
Try out the MI8. So I'm making this fully with the understanding, right? I'm gonna presume that everybody knows how to get into the helicopter.
I mean, if you steal a whole ass helicopter, you should know how to get fuel too. If you're resourceful enough to get your hands on a fucking chopper, you should at least be able to get fuel for the chop too.
So how to start it, how to take off on R, right? So I'm not going to go through the very, very basic things, because everybody knows that you can just get in and you press the collective up and you take off, right? This is the easy part. Everybody knows how to do this. Everybody knows how to do this, so I'm not gonna go through.
Everybody does not know how to do this. Everybody does not know how to do this. Yesterday I was with this fucking dude. I hopped in his chopper, and he immediately tore the rotor blades off. Not everybody knows how to do this.
Any details on how to do that. So the main thing I'd recommend is not to exceed like 45 to 60 degrees banking on any of the angles, because once you get,
those are gauges. They tell you whether or not you're about to crash, whether or not you're about to run out of fuel and crash, whether or not you're about to flip yourself over and crash. Basically, they help keep you alive. Do I know how to read them? Absolutely not. Do I know they're important? Yes. If they weren't important, they would not be on the dash.
Closer to like the 90 degrees angling, you get into an unrecoverable state where the helicopter will just turn. It'll be like almost impossible to level it out. The only way you can really get out of these high steep banking is with a lot of speed and a lot of altitude. So what I'm going to want you to do is just go up and down the runway. All right, don't.
Then you should not be flying helicopters.
Don't go low to the ground. Have a decent enough altitude so you can.
No, this is armor reforger.
Have room for mistakes, and when you get to the end of the runway, where you've got like the white.
Tom Cruise would be an insane enemy to fight if socialism ever rises. Tom Cruise is an old man with white man diseases. What do you mean he'll be a hard enemy to fight?
Blocks.
Oh, you said insane, not hard.
You're just gonna pull back on the joystick, or you're gonna press S if you're on keyboard, and you're just gonna pull back, right? You're just gonna pitch.
That's why I hang out with pilots. But one of the principles of Maoism, especially Maoist guerrilla warfare, is that you should rely on your own resources.
You're gonna pitch up and see what effect it has on the helicopter.
He flies helicopters and jets.
You're gonna see our land speed comes to a halt, but we gain a lot of altitude. And of course, we've had one result that we wanted in our land speed coming to a halt, but we've gained way too much altitude. That's obviously not what we want to do if we were coming in for a landing, right? So you can do the exact same thing, coming back the other way, but this time as you pull back, you're just going to compensate by lowering the collective, right? Decreasing the throttle. And the aim is to try and maintain your altitude. So you're going to pull back and then you're going to lower the collective. Not too much, you're just going to do it enough. Just keep modulating it. If you lower the collective too much, you're not going to decrease your land speed like you wanted. All right, you're gonna keep that momentum going forward more than you'd like, which is something you're just gonna have to compensate for. So if you were coming in for a landing, and you knew you were going very fast, and you're gonna have to like stay low, you're gonna have to pitch back earlier than you would have expected to come to a standstill where you wanted. So just keep going up and down the runway like this, and just pitching back, lowering the collective at the same time, and just getting a feel of what it takes.
See, if I try to do that, I would end up I would flip myself all the way fucking over.
To come to a standstill.
Like real pilots in this game, like I imagine they've put in like hours and hours and hours and suffered many, many, many hilarious crashes.
And maintaining
But that's the Maoist theory of knowledge. Nothing is learned except through practice. Hours and hours and hours and hours of embarrassing practice.
A relative altitude. And then just turn around and do it again. And then once you've done this a few times, you can then incorporate a landing. Okay, if you're in Game Master, you can place down a helipad somewhere. And you can then come in for it, use everything you've just learned to pitch back and lower your collective. Get yourself leveled up.
I'll watch that later. So yeah, Trump is bringing white South Africans as refugees to the United States while cutting everyone else out. And they're getting groceries, they're getting all types of shit. They're getting shit that even American citizens don't get. Ain't that a motherfucker? Amid a widespread crackdown on immigration and refugee programs, the Trump administration is slated to bring these undeserving white South Africans to the U.S. as refugees on Monday. They will now have a pathway to American citizenship. They're literally playing in our faces. So you're actually kicking out the productive Latino immigrants. People that have been in this country for decades. People have been in this country for years. People with kids. In Massachusetts the other day, they literally ripped a child out of her mother's arms. This shit is going to lead to countrywide riots. Countrywide riots. Say that 10 times fast. Because, like, they're playing with us now. They're under the belief that we're not going to do shit. They're under the belief that we are ineffective and weak. And honestly, they can be forgiven for holding that. Because look at the shit that the left argues over. If I see one more fucking argument about religion, I swear to God. The move is a first in a much larger scale relocation effort. So they're going over there. Like, you cannot make people leave who don't want to leave. There's still millions of Boers over there. They don't want to leave. They like their country. The Trump administration suspended the refugee resettlement program on its first day in office for a second term and froze funding for resettlement agencies. In Uganda, as one example, these cuts mean that food rations for 1 million people have been cut off. This is why what Burkina Faso and the alliance of Sahel states is doing is so important. You should not be in a position where you get all of your food from white people. You should not. Because, like Sankara said, he who controls you, he who feeds you, controls you. We have been feeding ourselves for millennia without white people. We do not need these people to feed us. And then it's fucking embarrassing. Like, I see all these travel blogs made by black Americans who have been expats or who have traveled a lot. How are black people treated in India? Black in Vietnam? Being black in Japan? Dating while black in Russia? Like, we're treated like shit in these countries because we're seen as a joke of a people. We have no land. We have no political power. No, Obama is not political power. Kamala Harris is not political power because it's individual, personal power. Same thing with AOC. AOC is not a representative of political power for Boricua people because she's just one person. Collective power is all that matters. Why don't people fuck with China? Why is China able to bend the United States to its will? Because do you all realize how fucked China was 100 years ago in 1925? In 1925, there was no China. It was a bunch of warlords that had parceled out the country among themselves, half of which were addicted to opium. There was no China in 1925. It took the strength of will of the Chinese Communist Party. It took Marxism-Leninism applied to Chinese circumstances. It took a united front of every Chinese person who said, you know what, these people need to get out and they need to quit fucking over our ancient country. That's what it took. And when the Japanese invaded, it took an alliance between the KMT and the Chinese Communists because there was a bigger enemy. And then afterwards, the Chinese Communist Party was strong enough to finish the deal and unite the entire country. Stalin's stupid ass actually wanted to divide the country in two. He was like a major Kuomintang dick rider. He wanted to give the South to the KMT, and he wanted to give Northern China to the Communist Party. Like, how fucked up do you have to be? I by no means am like a Stalin hater, but he did some stupid, fucked up shit. That's why Mao hated the Comintern. Like, he was literally like, you know what? We're just going to parcel out this whole fucking country. Let's partition China. That's why Mao really did not like him. I would not call them the worst of enemies, but they did not trust each other. And yes, he did also praise the formation of Israel. And the weapons that were used in the Nakba, a lot of them were either brought to mandatory Palestine by gun runners, they were stolen, or they were provided by the newly formed Eastern Bloc. The initial Israeli Air Force was trained in Czechoslovakia. And Stalin and the USSR recognized the state of Israel immediately. So yeah, not his finest hour. The U.S. will give about 50 white South Africans help with housing, groceries, and other needs, according to a document reviewed by the AP. So we're bringing these people in. Like, Americans cannot even eat. Like, this is when all that fucking rhetoric turns against them. Y'all have been complaining. Y'all have been whining about, they're getting shit that Americans can't get. They're getting stuff that Americans can't get. They're being given preference over Americans. Now, here you actually have something like that happening, and you all do not have a mumbling word because they are white. While State Department refugee programs have been suspended, halting arrivals from Afghanistan, Iraq, most of sub-Saharan Africa, and other countries, in a move being challenged in court, Donald Trump issued an executive order in February prioritizing the processing of white South Africans. So, literally, DEI for these fail-son ass Afrikaners. You cannot make this stuff up. And the government of South Africa responded on the 9th of May. He said that, noting that the initially recognized definition of refugees, this is Alvin Boltz, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, and he said that, noting that the internationally recognized definition of refugees is set out in 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol, the convention defines a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution. These Afrikaners, if you still have a huge amount of economic power in your country, if you still control literally all of the major corporations in your country, you are not a victim of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So, in this case, communists in the United States would be refugees. South Africa acknowledges that the determination of refugee status requires a factual assessment in light of the prevailing circumstances, having due regard for both subjective and objective factors. We reiterate that the allegations of discrimination are unfounded. The South Africa Police Service's statistics on farm-related crimes do not support allegations of violent crime targeted at farmers generally or any particular race. There are sufficient structures available within South Africa to address concerns of discrimination. Moreover, even if there are allegations of discrimination, it is our view that these do not meet the threshold of persecution required under domestic and international refugee law. It is most regrettable that it appears that the resettlement of South Africans in the United States under the guise of being refugees is entirely politically motivated and designed to question South Africa's constitutional democracy, a country which has in fact suffered true persecution under apartheid rule and has worked tirelessly to prevent such levels of discrimination from ever occurring again, including through the entrenchment of rights in our Constitution, which is enforced vigorously through our judicial system. In addition, it is not clear how the principle of non-refoulement will be applied in relation to these citizens once they are resettled. So he's literally going to Africa, taking these citizens. I don't think they've renounced their South African citizenship. So yeah, it's just a clusterfuck. This whole administration is a clusterfuck. He blinked on the tariffs, by the way. Why? Because that's what he does. He rouses people up with this fucking propaganda bullshit, and then he blinks once he becomes aware of the ramifications of the shit he's trying to do. There's also an inflation report coming out, which is probably going to be fuck the shit. So the U.S. and Chinese officials said they struck an agreement to pause most tariffs and other trade barriers for 90 days. Why? Because Trump is a fucking moron. Because, like, that's what he does. That's what he's done. This country is dumb. They elected this idiot twice. He doesn't know what he's doing. They elected him twice. He just talks a big fucking game. He runs his mouth. Like, he's not bringing millions of Boers here. He's not going to bring China to heel. China can literally turn us into a third-tier country. China can literally turn us into the UK if they want to. And the Chinese are gloating about it, as they should. Because like the thing with the Chinese is that they've seen this brinkmanship shit before. They've seen this brinkmanship shit before. This is a fucking 5,000-year-old country. They're not going to be shown up or embarrassed by a country that has been around for a shorter period of time than a lot of their dynasties. If I were a lord in medieval times, what would I call my house? House Redguard, obviously. How much of the country's deficit is growing because of the increase of resources to the military federal forces? Look, every time these people talk about balancing the budget, they're full of shit. The last president that balanced the budget was Clinton. We actually had a budget surplus when he left. And Clinton was not a Republican. He was definitely very conservative. Like his whole wing of the Democratic Party, the New Democrats, like they're basically, in the 70s, the New Democrats, Bill Clinton would have been a Republican. But, yeah, the last president to balance our budget was Bill Clinton. Everybody else has run a deficit. Reagan fucked the deficit up with his Star Wars and all types of other bullshit, plus his massive tax cuts. And every Republican president has basically followed him. Yes, Bill Clinton, the guy who got his dick sucked in the White House. He actually tried to ruin that lady's life. Like, that was not funny. But I was a kid when that happened. Like, I was only like 4 years old. So I really don't remember the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. But that was not the first woman that he did that to. But yeah, a lot of politicians do that. And they end up ruining these girls' lives. So yeah. Terrorists are really not a good way to, well, they're very, very good at riling up conservative, reactionary white people, but economically, yeah, they don't work. So the PKK is apparently laying down arms. After decades of armed struggle, the National Liberation Movement led one of the longest-running armed conflicts in modern history. It's definitely a blow. I'm not one to tell the Kurdish people how to struggle. Like, they know their conditions more than I do. But it certainly bodes ill for a lot of solidarity efforts in the West. And a lot of other things. Like, the Turks are not going to leave the Kurds alone. The Turks are not going to leave the Kurds alone. So my guess is, like, they're going to have to pick up the gun again. They're going to have to. Out of necessity. Because the Turks are not going to stop killing them. They're not going to stop calling them mountain Turks. They're not going to keep trying to, they're not going to stop fucking with these people. The only way that there's going to be a Kurdistan is through force of arms. The PKK was one of the largest armed non-state actors worldwide. Öcalan led its foundation in 1978 in the southeast of Turkey to fight for an independent Kurdistan. The early PKK was heavily inspired by the socialist and anti-colonial movement that defined the 1970s. Just 2 years after the party's founding, Turkey was rocked by a military coup. The Kurdish language was banned. The state launched a full-blown counterinsurgency campaign targeting the surging leftist and Kurdish independence movements that had begun to take root. Palestinian liberation organizations like the Party for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, holy shit, they're wearing sneakers. I see a couple pairs of Nikes, and I see a couple more pairs of Adidas. Guess that's how we're going to have to dress. Offering refuge and solidarity. The Palestinians handed the 300 Kurdish militants their military academy in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, along with weapons, training, and financial means. In 1984, the PKK launched a full-scale armed uprising in Turkey. Large swaths of the 15 million Kurds in the country began to sympathize with the PKK's cause. The conflict has resulted in 40,000 lost lives, with 7,000 being killed in the past 10 years alone. In 1999, a U.S.-Turkish joint operation backed by Israel's Mossad captured Abdullah Öcalan in Kenya. The news ignited outrage among Kurds worldwide. In Berlin, Israeli security forces shot dead 3 Kurds when nearly 200 protesters were rushing towards the Israeli embassy. Öcalan spent nearly 26 years in solitary confinement on the Imrali prison island in Turkey, heavily guarded by 1,000 Turkish soldiers. Look, say what you will about Abdullah Öcalan and Gonzalo, But if you need 1,000 dudes to guard you, then you're probably doing something right. During his incarceration, though, he distanced himself from socialism, introducing a new ideological framework he called democratic confederalism, which was heavily influenced by the... I have a book that the Emergency Committee for Rahafa sent me. It's on Abdullah Öcalan's thought. I haven't burned it. I haven't thrown it away. I'm going to read it one day. But yeah, democratic confederalism, heavily influenced by the work of Murray Bookchin. My ears are getting better. An American accent from who? Me? Yeah, I'm from the Midwest. The organizational embodiment of this shift occurred in 2005 with the establishment of the Kurdistan Communities Union. This entity unites Kurdish independent movements under the leadership of Abdullah Öcalan across Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Iraq. It is primarily rooted in Turkey and Syria. As part of peace talks in 2013, the PKK began withdrawing its forces from Turkey to Iraqi Kurdistan. By 2015, the ceasefire had collapsed. In the years that followed, Turkey launched heavy military offensives, forcing the PKK to shift their operations into northern Iraqi Kurdistan. Now, aspirations for self-determination seem further than ever. Some argue, it's not an argument, it's a truth, that the root causes leading to the PKK's founding remain, and the Kurdish movement is aligning itself with regional and imperialist powers, taking on a new role in ongoing efforts to redesign the Middle East. And yes, their fits are insane. They also seem incredibly comfortable. A lot more comfortable than a fucking zoot suit. But yeah, hundreds of martyrs. Would I call it an insult to their memory? I may not have the right to do so, but yes. But they will have to pick up the gun again. They will have to. Because Turkey is not going to stop until the Kurdish aspirations for self-determination in their own land is realized. They're not going to stop until it's crushed, rather. And the Kurdish people will not stop until they have realized their dream of a homeland. So, let's see what else is happening. Without a people's army, the people have nothing. So true. I hopped in a time machine. This is U.S. President Mike Huckabee surrendering to me. That's actually my face plastered over Van Jones's body. Look, if I ever end up like Van Jones, I'm certain one of you crazy motherfuckers will do what must be done. This was discussed in one of those news articles. But yeah, the Episcopal Church is saying, you know what, fuck this. We're not bringing these people over here. Go fuck yourself. And I imagine that Trump is not Episcopal. He's Presbyterian, Scottish Protestant. But yeah. So the Episcopal Church said that the stated reasons for Trump's actions are claims of victimization, violence, and hateful rhetoric against white people in South Africa, along with legislation providing for the expropriation of land without compensation. That was a letter from white South African religious leaders, which included among its 4 authors an Anglican priest. In the United States, you would call it Anglican and Episcopalian. So basically, same derivatives of the Church of England. The stated reasons for Trump's actions are basically Boer bullshit. In addition to ties with Desmond Tutu, the Episcopal Church has a long history of advocating against apartheid in South Africa. It first began altering its financial holdings in the region in 1966, and by the mid-1980s, the church voted to divest from companies that were doing business with South Africa. This is why I laugh at like these unions that have not divested. I don't think a single major American union has divested from Israel. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's why if you're a white communist, your goal is not to ensure that white workers receive $50 an hour for making bombs and missiles and drones and planes that are used against our comrades overseas. No. This is literally Elizabethan blowback. Yeah. Should have let Henry VIII get a divorce. Actually, fuck Henry VIII. Bloated, nasty, boil-infested motherfucker. Yeah, anyways. I like Episcopalians. They're dope. Very progressive on the queer question as well. Land back is impossible. Mexico be like, let's just give them the land back. Let's give them thousands of acres of land back. The guy that stabbed Megan Thee Stallion has been stabbed himself. Well, the guy that shot Megan Thee Stallion has been stabbed himself. Very good. As always, to abusers. And finally, help comrade Decolonial Marks out. He is going on a very, very important tour to interview American Indian Movement veterans, another Sundance, and organizers from any party, cadre, or community along the way, but they will probably need help with gas. Tory did not stab himself. He was stabbed in prison, and the community along the way, but he will need help with gas, the rental, and lodging while in Colorado. If you either have a couch or a floor, then a partner can crash on or want to contribute to the $2,000 goal they have so they can rent a car for 2 weeks, afford the gas, and eat some tasty AIM steaks, bologna sandwiches. Oh, I think you need some real steaks, comrade. And had out mutual red aid on the way. You can donate to Cash App Zitkatos 10 Can or Zitkato on Venmo. Or DM them about PayPal. But yeah, help a comrade out. It's very important work. Anyways, I will see y'all later. I have a meeting in an hour. And too much yapping is bad for your soul. You don't have neither Venmo nor money, better sending prayers.